Hey all, this is David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be talking about Sylphs, the people of elemental wind and thunder. I've already done 2 videos so far on elemental races, that being Undines, the people of water, and Oread, the people of stone. So I'm going to be using all 3 of these, as well as Ifrit, the people of fire, in a campaign of mine I'm going to call a 5th element. I'm very much looking forward to that. And these are going to be the only 4 races available, not even humans. Every animal will also have an elemental template. I'm kind of looking at a cross between Pokemon and Avatar The Last Airbender, except we're going to keep it nice and serious. So I'm really looking forward to this campaign. These races, of course, I pulled out of Pathfinder, out of their advanced race guide. And as much as I love the advanced race guide, and it's got a lot of good stuff there, the elemental races are probably the weakest in that book. They're still strong mechanically. The mechanics are great. But they don't have any unique culture of their own. They're all just half-breeds. You know, oh, I'm half human, half flame, but I was raised in the culture of humans, so I have no culture of my own. Which, that's just kind of boring to me. I would say it's a cop-out on the part of the game designers, but I don't think it is in Paizo. I think they really just thought this was an interesting concept to do this half-breed thing. So, I'm not going to badmouth Paizo for that, because they're a great company. But for me, what I'm going to do is go through the unique cultures of all 4 of them that I've come up with. I've already done 2 of the videos. This is the 3rd one. So let's get down to it. Sylphs, the people of the sky. So in my game, Sylphs live on floating sky islands. The islands float because of a mineral called cavorite, which is lighter than air, and that's because it's magical. So don't think too hard about that. Because one of my players is really big in physics, and he's losing his mind when I mentioned it. So this one element called cavorite is magical. It floats. It's lighter than air. So it has risen up the deposits around it of stone, of iron, of whatever was around it originally. And it's broken it off, and it's all flying through the sky, just drifting on the wind. So you have these sky islands, these mountains in the sky, and sometimes they'll even have grass and forests and trees growing on top of them. Very interesting. And this is where the Sylphs live. And they do mine the cavorite to a degree, and they can turn it into a gas that's lighter than air, which they use to fill ballasts on their sky ships. So they're the masters of sky ships. They're the sky sailors, and they're basically an intrepid merchant race. So you remember in my video on Undines, the Undines basically are hunter-gatherers, and they gather a lot of food and do a lot of lumberjacking down in the swampy forests, whereas the Oreads are excellent miners and trappers, and they hunt, essentially hunt by trapping buffalo of the plains, water buffalo. But they also mine out a lot of minerals and do a lot of smithing, crafting, jewel work. But these 2 races don't really directly interact with each other. One is water, and one is stone. The water people and the stone people, they live in a rocky desert. So the water people will dehydrate and die if they try to cross the stone desert. And the rock people, if they try to go through the swamps, they'll sink to the bottom and drown because they cannot swim. So that opens up this great opportunity for the Sylphs to be the merchant race, the go-between. They fly through the sky above the desert and above the swamps. So they'll take wood and food and medicine from the Undines and trade them to the Oreads for steel and jewelry and their kinds of food as well. And they'll trade back and forth between the two races, and of course keep a percentage of both for themselves, which is only their just rewards for going through the trouble. So in this way, all three races are fairly closely linked to each other. They all kind of depend on each other for survival. The Oreads, they kind of need that medicine and the wood products from the forested swamp. The Undines, if they want any metal spearheads or any nice jewelry, they kind of depend on the Oreads for that. So great symbiotic relationship there. The Sylphs themselves are, they're a merchant caste. Religion is still very important to them, however. But the two exist in a fairly close competition. Whereas the Undines are very druidic and they prefer rangers. The Oreads are very religious. They have paladins and clerics. The Sylphs do have clerics and paladins. Their paladins especially form a noble order, and they ride out on giant eagles. It's this great aerial cavalry. That's their primary military force, if they ever do need one, are these paladins mounted on giant eagles. So religion is very important to them as well. Although, of the three races, they're probably the most magically inclined of those three, but their magic tends towards bardic magic, which usually I hate bardic magic, but in this particular case, being creatures of wind and thunder, I think bardic magic works really perfectly for them, that they can have this sound created by the wind, and they can manipulate sound so well that they can call magic forth just from the music. So bards are very important in their society. Even non-magical troubadours and entertainers of the Sylphs are in demand for both the Undine and the Oread peoples. But mercantilism is also very important, whereas the Oreads value military prowess in fighting other city-states. The Undines value hunting prowess. The Sylphs value mercantile prowess, who can make the most money, cut the best deal. So, I tend towards putting them in with a kind of a council of leaders made up of their strongest businessmen. And basically, you can buy your way onto this council, but it's very expensive to do so. Thus, only the richest can afford to do it. And then the proceeds from you buying your way onto the council go towards public works projects. So that's basically where the government funding comes from. That's their form of taxation. And of course, it's open to a lot of corruption. You can see that right away, which is why the church should get their own council seats, just to make sure that corruption is kept to a minimum as much as possible. So the church kind of acts as a check against the government, which is made up of merchants. Now, of the three races, though, Sylphs would definitely be the most prone to corruption, to lying, to cheating, the most rogue-like of the three, if you will. So the Undines have this very close-knit community in their own way. They really help each other in a neighborly way. The Oreads have this kind of city-state, almost empire-building philosophy, almost communistic, so they're very close. The Sylphs are definitely in the most direct competition against each other. So they're a little bit looser, laxer in their morals, so that can come across. The other races might trust them less, they're merchants, so it's kind of hard to trust them. They're always trying to get their percentage points up. So you can kind of be looked down upon by the other races in that respect. They tend to wear flowing, loose garments, especially silks, if they can get them. They have a unique trait to their biology, where they can manipulate wind to a degree. This gives them the ability, among other things, to feather fall. This greatly impacts their architecture. They tend to have very tall towers, very high buildings, and very, very often the most efficient way between two different buildings could be to just step off of one and drift down onto the next. So this could cause real problems with visitors to their city. Oreads, undines, they can't feather fall. So navigating these cities, they have to try to find some bridges. And Oread cities are built on the inside of canyon walls. There are a lot of bridges. So they're used to that, but there are so many fewer bridges in the Sylph cities, because the Sylphs themselves very rarely need them, that it would be frustrating to them. And of course, undines, to a degree, might be used to this, living in the boughs and the roots of enormous mangrove trees. So they might be a little more used to this, but at least they can usually swim between locations. So their architecture would be very interesting. Of course, as far as cuisine goes, they'd eat a lot of, first of all, a lot of the goods they've traded from others, but also they'd eat a lot of poultry, especially a rock dove, a very large birds that would live up in the sky islands in this environment. And I imagine that one of their primary hunting methods would be hawking, using hawks to retrieve these birds in mid-flight. Because if you shoot down a rock dove and it falls, over thin air, you're going to have trouble retrieving it. So that leads them into hawking. Of course, birds are very sacred to the Sylphs. Like the Sylphs themselves, birds can fly. All other animals are beneath them in their aspect. So I could see their different gods, each being represented by a different bird. A crow, a raven, an albatross, eagle, a falcon, even into like a bat or an owl for more unusual deities, or a pterodactyl, perhaps. In terms of appearance, Sylphs tend to have kind of a milky white skin and yellow hair, although their hair color can range through to blue or purple or even white to match their skin. And their eyes can match their hair as well. They tend to be very thin, kind of frail looking, short, often with pointed ears. So very similar to elves. If I were to use this culture in a regular fantasy game, I might even be tempted to call them sky elves. As it is, though, I prefer the name Sylph. Perhaps other races call them sky elves, though. I love multiple names for the same race. I have my goblins and drow, that's the same. Orcs, Uruk, same. Khazad and Dvergar, that's the same. Eldar and Eladrin, same race again. I love sub-races and multiple names for the same race. So they wouldn't have a very large military presence. They don't really have much cause to go to war, and they're very peaceful people as well. Probably of the three, easily the most peaceful. They seeing war as kind of wasteful from a mercantile perspective. Trying to think if I've missed anything, but I think that just about covers it, how I run the Sylphs. Great intrepid merchants, musicians, very, very airy, very chaotic race, very individualistic, but and very mercurial. I think there's a lot that you can do with them as a race, as a culture, and I look forward to bringing them into the game as well. So I got one more video to go in this 4-video series. That will be the mysterious Ifrit of the deep sandy desert. So as you can see, I keep referring to of the 3 races, and that's because the Ifrit are somewhat separate, being very isolationist. And you can learn more about them if you tune into the next video. For right now, I'm going to be signing off. Everybody have a good day now.